Hey, good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, it's the Champion Principle. And today we're going to talk about, I want to just share a little bit with you about a presentation that I gave. I was invited to give a presentation with the Boy Scouts of America, where Richard Shelby was and many other great leaders was. And all I did was just tell the story of my childhood and my growth, me growing up as a little boy on the west side of Tuscaloosa. So I just want to give you a little bit about that so you can really understand, who I am and, what I'm all about. So I know many of y'all want what gives this guy credibility. I know people on a local level, you probably already know me and things like that, but I just want to share a little bit so you really can understand and feel who the Champion Principle really is. And so I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'm going to give you a little snippet of it. But hey, guys, so I'm not sure if any of you all have ever been to Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And that's where I was born and raised, right in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And of course, my mom was a very young mom. She was a transient, what you call a transient mom, a parent. And so we did, go from area to area, whether from the west side to the south side to Northport and things like that. But before I became, Doc or Dr. Lombard, before I became this great educator, before I had all these 18 years of experience with 3 degrees, BS, master's degree, a doctorate degree, before I won any of the awards and all that kind of stuff, I was just a little kid. I was just a little kid who was called Peanut. And, Peanut, they call me Peanut because my mom, I can tell you, my mom was a teenage mom. I believe I got the story correct. She was about 13 years old when she was pregnant with me. And just think about that for a second. So a teenage African-American girl in the 70s. And keep in mind, she was smart as a whip. So she was very, very smart. So very smart girl, basically growing up in poverty on the west side of Tuscaloosa. Had many brothers and sisters. We all lived in the same home in my grandmother's house. And she did what she had to do. She had a little baby, and she had to take care of that baby as a teenage mom. I remember she even told me how, she had to quit school for a year because during that time, it really wasn't acceptable to have children while you were in school, especially at that age. But she had me, so I was a little peanut. I remember her telling me the story about I was so small where I actually can fit inside of the doctor's hand. They were holding me in their hand with my little feet hanging off the hand. So I was really what they call a miracle baby. Wasn't supposed to be here. Wasn't supposed to make it. But thank God that I'm here. Thank God that I made it. I remember growing up in Tuscaloosa. I remember growing up, but not much. I don't know if I really remember if I was poor or not, but I do remember we didn't have much. I do remember that as I got older, I knew that I didn't have the same thing that other children had, but I knew I had food. I knew I had clothes. I knew my mom and my grandmother took care of me. Of course, I didn't have a father. I'm just keeping it real with you. I'm talking about the guy, my biological father. I always remember his name, but I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know his mom, his father, his grandmother, his cousins. I didn't know the whole side of the family. So it was kind of hard, growing up. I was just, and even to this day, I always wonder, what happened to this guy? Where is he? Why didn't he help take care of us? What did I do to him? What was wrong with me? Even after all these years, I still ask the question. I'm like, dude, where are you? Why haven't you come back? I can't possibly need anything from you at this point. So I'm like, I just couldn't, I couldn't get it. And it matters. And like a lot of people think that, broken homes and single parent households don't matter. We're teaching a false narrative, guys. It do matter. I'm a living witness, and I'm here to tell you that I think about my father to this day. I tell you, it impacted me to this day. You know how many lessons I did not learn because of him? Do you know how much he could have taught me about being a man that it skipped all over me. Can you imagine learning everything that you pretty much know from a woman, but that woman has never been a man? How could you possibly think that did not affect me? How could you possibly think that don't affect the rest of the boys out there? We wonder why our boys are so angry. Yeah, they're angry. Number one, they're doing the best they can. Many of them were not taught by a man. They're not taught by a man. They were not reared by a man. They were not given examples by a man. They were not disciplined by a man. They were not shown good role modelship by a man. So how could they possibly be good men? Oh, because the mom and the auntie and the grandmama told them and taught them. Try go learn from it. Hey, you want to go be an engineer, right? Do you want an engineer to teach you? Or do you want somebody else who don't know nothing about being an engineer? Think about that for a second. Don't you think medical doctors learn from other medical doctors? Right. So when we think about our boys, when we think about why they're so angry, when we think about why they got so many issues, we need to stop saying why. The answer is right in front of us. So I remember growing up on the West Side. I remember going to the different schools on the West Side. I remember seeing drugs. I remember seeing some violence. I remember seeing domestic abuse. Yeah. I remember going to Kmart, getting the cheapest shoes you can find. I remember having 3 pair of pants, and we had to wash those pants on Thursday. I remember that. I remember, even, it's so funny, even in your own household, you can tell the difference. I remember how my sister, she had a dad, her dad made pretty good money. I can remember how she would go off on the weekends with her dad and come back with clothes galore. You think that didn't bother me? You think I didn't want to, where my dad at? That does something to it just does something to your mind. It does something to your self-esteem, your lack of self-esteem. Yeah, my mom and grandmother them did an awesome job, aunties and everybody. But some things they just could not make up for. So as time went on, I remember just growing up, and I gravitated toward certain people. I gravitated toward my uncles. I gravitated toward people at school, different organizations in school. Some good, some bad. And although I've done well, it's still a struggle. It's still a fight. I'm trying to still make it. It's hard. When you look at people who have depression, when you look at people who have mental illnesses, a lot of times we just don't know what to do. We don't know who to reach out to. We don't know who to talk to. That's why a lot of our relationships don't work. And then sometimes when our relationships look like they're working, they're really not working. We're just doing the best we can do. So going through my struggles and going through the positives, the negatives, the hurdles, the good things, the bad things, I realized I had to become an educator. I had to become a mentor. I had to become a champion for our boys and girls, because those boys and girls are just like me. Many of them are identical to me. Many of them do not have fathers at home. Many of them come from broken homes. Many of them are just doing the best that they can do. So it's my responsibility to give back to them. It's my responsibility to make sure that they are successful, because they need us. Think about it. What if somebody wasn't there for me? It had to be somebody who was in my life that made an impact, who made a difference, who helped me go right when I could have went wrong. We have to stop saying we don't know what's wrong with this generation. No, what's wrong with this generation is us. We've messed this generation up. We haven't done everything that we can do. as a society, as a family, as fathers, in some cases as mothers. We haven't done everything that we can do. We dropped the ball. I know why we dropped the ball, because it's hard and we're selfish. Many of us, all we care about is ourselves, when we should be focused on the children that we had, that we produced. That's one thing I can say about my mom. No matter how young she was, no matter how poor she was, she focused on her children. And from day one, she always talked about being better, doing better in education. I still remember when she first got her degree. You know? That's how she had her kids, and she was working and everything. She went back and got her degree from the UA. That motivated me to see her still pushing forward after we basically came up with nothing. We came up through a broken home. We came up through poverty. Grew up right there on the west side. Grew up around drugs, domestic violence, abuse. Nothing. But one thing that remained common was a mother's love, education, and hope. So that's why I call myself the champion principal. I was a miracle baby. A miracle baby who wasn't supposed to make it. Born premature. Hey, that's probably why I'm still small today, by the way. But a miracle baby. Wasn't supposed to make it off the west side, but made it. Still working to make it. Still working to be a champion. Still struggling to get there. Because I'm not there yet. And that's what this message is all about, is to make sure, that you guys out there, you understand. I'm just like you. I'm just like them babies at my school. I'm just like those babies who I've taught for over 18 years. And we're struggling. They're struggling. The struggle is real. But through education, they can be successful. Through education, they can make it. We have to make sure we get that education and avoid those pitfalls in life. Who'd have ever thought Little Peanut would be an 18-year veteran in education? Thank you for listening. The Champion Principal.